What's up, guys? LQ here with the LQ review. I thought I'd give my opinion on what I think about Mickey Mouse joining public domain and what I think about this movie coming out, Mickey's Mousetrap, as well as some of the other Steamboat Willie inspired um, content that's coming out soon. First of all, I grew up a huge Disney fan. To some degree, I still am a huge Disney fan. I love Disney World and I love old school Disney. And I love the first three phases of the MCU. Now, what's happened here is that Disney has definitely fallen out of favor with a lot of the mainstream audience. Uh, I'm kind of the same way. They've put out stuff in the past couple years that I've liked, but most of the content they've put out I haven't liked at all. And I think that because of that, I've got mixed feelings about Mickey entering the public domain. Um, so I know some people who have really celebrated this, and they have said, Disney's been stealing content from people for years, and that this is seen as a way that the normal creators who don't have a multi-million billion dollar organization behind them, this is a way for us to be able to have access to that content to be creative with it. I agree with that to some extent. But we're also dealing with a company mascot here. A company that I sincerely hope gets back on track in the near future. But more than that, let's talk about the ramifications of Mickey's Mousetrap. I watched Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. It was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. A lot of my disdain for that movie came from taking something innocent from childhood and perverting it and corrupting it. And when I look at something like Mickey's Mousetrap, I'm seeing the same thing. They're taking something innocent from childhood that every child has feelings about, and they are perverting it and corrupting it in a way that's not true to the character at all. When you take Mickey Mouse or Winnie the Pooh or whoever, and because they're public domain now, you think to yourself, okay, the only way that I can do this and differentiate myself enough from Disney is to make it a horror movie, a slasher movie. Well, that's just the laziest form of creativity that I can possibly imagine. Let's take, I don't know, the Smurfs. One day the Smurfs are going to be public domain. The easiest thing to do with them will be to take them and make them these creatures that stalk and kill people in the woods. It's the easiest thing to do. It's also the laziest thing to do. But more than that, I just feel to some extent that this is an attack on childhood. Taking these iconic characters that are so intrinsically tied to being a kid and making them into killers, I find it offensive. And yeah, I watched Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. Terrible movie. I won't watch the sequel. I won't waste the 90 minutes of my life on it, honestly. And I'm not going to watch Mickey's Mousetrap just because it's on principle now. It's on principle of what do we want to stand for as fans, and what do we want our creators to stand for? And more that window of childhood is closing. Kids aren't kids as long today as they are in the past, as they have been in the past. I have a 10-year-old, and she has access to so much more than I had access to when I was a kid. And in some ways that's great. Her familiarity and her mastery of technology is going to be far ahead of where I was. when I went into the workforce. But I'm also seeing her say things that weren't even in my subconscious when I was 10. And I'm not talking about bad things. She has adult concerns. You know, she's wondering about money. She's wondering about budgeting. And I mean, some of this is good stuff to worry about. But do I want her worrying about it now while she's 10, or do I want her just being a kid? So we're seeing the window of childhood closing. It's getting smaller. And what something like Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey does, and what things like Mickey's Mousetrap does, is, yeah, it satisfies a need for horror fans. Sure. Low budget slasher films. But it's also taking these iconic characters and turning them into something that kids are going to be aware of. Kids will be talking about this at school. They'll be talking about this on the playground. They'll be talking about it online. And because of that, because of the interest that kids have into these characters, some of them are going to seek these movies out, whether the parents know about it or not. I know my kids aren't allowed to watch horror movies. I hope that they haven't watched something like Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. I don't think that they have. But the reality is that there are going to be kids who are going to seek this out because of the IP. And then all of a sudden, that window of childhood for that kid gets shorter. I don't know. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe I'm idealistic. But when you're talking about a company mascot like Mickey Mouse, I think there should be lines that we respect. I would be all for someone taking the Steamboat Willie IP and making a series of Steamboat Willie cartoons. Hand-drawn. A true creator. Someone who knows how to animate, knows how to tell a story, and continue the story of Steamboat Willie in that world. Maybe make a 6-episode series. I'd be all about that. I'd be the first line to watch that. But a lazy, uninspired, cash grab attempt like Mickey's Mousetrap, I just find offensive. So, you know, I'm not a big YouTuber by any stretch of the imagination. I've got 1,600 subscribers, and my thumbprint in the digital world is basically nothing. I don't have the influence to make a video and say, please don't watch this. But I can tell you I'm not going to watch it. So, I don't know. Mickey's Mousetrap. That's all I got. Makes me sad. See you guys.